Good morning, YouTube. I am the Fat Health Teacher checking in. Before I get started on today's topic, I want to talk to you about your Keurig. So if you have one of these pod machines, something that might happen to your machine, which actually happened to ours, is it started brewing very, very slowly. It was taking something like 20 minutes to brew 8 ounces, which was kind of crazy. Like, you'd set it to brew, and then you go take a shower. When you come back, it's still finishing up. Anyway, so I looked it up, and the fix was ridiculously easy. It was 20 seconds, and I used a little needle to clean out the big needles. See? I used this to clean out the big needles. All I did was open the machine like I was going to put a pod in, and then I found the needles that pierce the pod, and those are really easy to find. And then I just stuck this up and cleaned it out, and honestly, it was a couple of coffee grinds. It was a little ridiculous how easy it was to clean out. But it was awesome that it cleaned out that easily, because I thought the pump was going, which would have made me very unhappy, because I think we've had that machine for less than 2 years. Okay, and now for the second topic, or the main topic of this video. If today I was only able to speak in movie and music references, or book and music references, I would have the primary idea being don't panic, courtesy of The Hitchhiker's Guide, which was written by Douglas Adams. Additionally, music-wise, I would have Little Less Talk, which is by Toby Keith, and No by Meghan Trainor. And I'm going to go ahead and explain why each of those is appropriate for this conversation. Okay, so this could also be known as the addiction video part 2, because what's happened is I have an addict in my life, and this is somebody who I think I still love, but it's a love that has morphed, right? And so it's a little bit hard to explain, because this person has hurt me very badly. Anyway, so when fortunes change for Bob, and again, Bob and Sally are my go-tos. When fortunes change for him, he gets a lot bolder, and instead of making progress, because he is emboldened, he will start to make threats. And those threats usually involve being taken to court for various reasons, reasons that aren't necessarily valid. But Bob, like many addicts, is good at convincing people that his way is the right way, and that he is a victim because of his addictions. Okay? And so once he burns the bridges with people in his past, he'll actually go and find new people, and he will tell them his story, and they will say, "Wow, that's a terrible thing. I can't believe that she would do that to you. I don't understand why she's not here supporting you." And so I kind of wanted to address that. So Bob came into some money, and then he started threatening to take me to court for, again, multiple reasons. I'm not going to get into it because, this is public. If you know me in person, then you probably know exactly who I'm talking about and what the circumstances are. Anyway, my reaction was to worry. All right. I worried a lot because, as I said, he's very convincing when he talks, and I don't have a lot of money. So the idea of going to court, the idea of being driven bankrupt because he decided that this was the best way to handle things, is not something that I looked forward to at all, and I was actually concerned. But something to know about me is, if I have to take a drug test, even though I don't use drugs, at least not anything illegal, I still worry about testing positive. It doesn't make any sense, but this is just kind of who I am. I worry that I'm going to get busted, okay, for something that I didn't even do. So, don't panic. That is the theme for today. Don't panic. If you have an addict in your life, I have a few recommendations. And this addict can be connected to you in a lot of different ways. They could be a best friend, they could be a child, they could be a sibling, they could be a parent, they might be your partner. However it is that this person is connected to you. First, I'm going to say hang in there, okay? Because this is not going to be an easy journey. Not at all. Often addicts aren't even going to acknowledge what it is that's going on. And sometimes when things get really bad, they will acknowledge, but as soon as things start looking up again, they will start insisting that it wasn't really that bad and it was okay. All right. So, with regards to Bob, he had to sign some paperwork when he first got in trouble for his addictions. And as I said, when things started looking up, he was emboldened. And so he started telling me that he didn't need to follow the paperwork because he signed it under duress. All right. This is not acceptable, and as I said, this caused me to worry. Now, I have a lot of smart people in my life. I have my current partner, I have my roommates, I have my parents, and all of them were basically saying, it's going to be okay, don't panic. He's doing a lot of talking. My lawyer was even telling me the same thing. He's doing a lot of talking. We don't know if it's actually going to go anywhere. Okay? And Bob is well known for making plans and then not following through on them. First recommendation, don't panic. Second recommendation is be patient, because this is going to be a really long journey if you decide to try to support this person through their addictions and hopefully on their way to recovery. And the third thing is you're going to need to put yourself first. And this can be really, really hard. All right? My situation growing up was not an easy one. I am the oldest child in my family, and I was often put into the role of caretaker for the rest of my siblings. My youngest brother is 8 years younger than me, and so when he came around, and my parents were in school or working over the summers, the burden, and it really wasn't a burden, but the burden of childcare was left to me. And I actually had some people when I was about 16 who were asking if he was my kid. Obviously not, but apparently I did not age well, or have not aged well. Now we're getting to our first musical reference, which is the Toby Keith one. If you haven't heard this one, it goes a little bit something like this. A little less talk and a lot more action. Okay? And it just keeps going on. But as I said, addicts will plan and plan and plan. Bob had some huge plans for what he was going to do with his life, with business, with money that he was receiving, all of that. And he didn't follow through on it. Okay? I actually received a phone call on I think it was Thursday, from the police, because Bob didn't have anybody else to intervene for him, and he was having trouble at a local public place, right? And so I was called, and I immediately dropped everything I was doing, got dressed, and went to rescue him, I guess. This disturbed my partner significantly, which is a reasonable reaction given the history that I have with Bob, to the point that my partner actually called another friend of ours who called me while I was trying to cope with the situation. And like I said, it was a valid concern, but it was hard for me to get away from that instinct of helping. Okay, it's hard for me to not be the rescuer, for me to not put myself out there constantly, even if it causes me to get hurt. I've done this a long, long time. It's a terrible habit, and it's something that I am working to change, right? To put myself first, and to not put my family at risk, to not put my relationships at risk, and to not continue to support somebody who keeps making choices that are hurting him. Okay, so Bob is an addict, and when I went, it was very clear he was surrounded by police. The ambulance was there, a fire truck was there, all of that. His behavior appeared to be irrational, but after talking with the paramedic that was on site, he was oriented enough to not qualify for a mental health transport. And the police were clearly done with him. Bob can talk. He just can't. And even though he had put his hands on the security people for that location, they weren't willing to press charges, and Bob was not willing to admit that he was doing anything. He claimed that he was completely clean and sober, but his behavior seemed to indicate otherwise, which means that if he was clean and sober, then it is very likely he was having some sort of mental break. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, so I'm just going based on my observations, but I'm not actually making a diagnosis here. I'm just calling it like I saw it. So anyway, In order to leave the location, I had to threaten Bob to not give him a ride because the police wanted him off the property, the security people wanted him off property, the medical people wanted to transport, but he was refusing. So I had to tell him, if you don't sign the paperwork that you need to sign and give them the information that they need so they can do their jobs, then you're going to be walking home. He didn't like this, so he finally complied, got in a car. I took him to his house. He was locked out of his house, didn't have his driver's license. There's all kinds of stuff that was coming up, and all he would tell me is that he was clean, that he was sober, and that everything that he had done that day and in the prior week was completely rational and reasonable. I doubt it. Okay, I'm not going to go into details as far as exactly what I was observing, but I don't believe him. So I was supposed to have an encounter with him on Sunday, and he actually texted me today and said that he was going to have to cancel because he wasn't ready, and also was indicating that he needed to get additional help. So what this was telling me is that he's off the wagon, and this is really hard because when this first came to light a couple of years ago, there was the promise of I promise I'm going to get clean. I'm going to go to rehab, and I'm going to do everything that I need to do, and I'm going to get straight, right? I'm going to get a good job, and I'm going to start whatever, okay? And he keeps falling back into his old habits. Like I said, when it's meth that you're dealing with, which is what his current drug of choice is, I think, I'm not sure anymore, but at the time it was, meth has a 93% recidivism rate. That means 93% of people who are meth users are going to keep using. And as addiction goes, they're going to keep using despite what's happening in their lives, despite other things that they could lose, because getting that feeling, getting the high is going to be more desirable, and the idea of not having the drug is actually harder than trying to deal with the fallout of using. Okay, so a little less talk, a lot more action. All right, the second thing, which has been really hard for me, is No by Meghan Trainor. This one goes a little bit, I'm probably going to butcher this song. Let's see. My name is No. My sign is no. My number is no. You need to let it go. Okay? Basically, you need to learn how to say no. If you are constantly there to rescue them, whether it's financially or with rides or by getting them to where they need to go, that kind of stuff, then they're never going to get to a point where it's life or death for them. And I firmly believe that until it becomes a life or death thing, they're still not going to change. And to be honest, with some of them, with some addicts, it doesn't matter if it's a life or death situation, they'll keep choosing the drugs. But here's the thing for you to understand. And here's the thing that I need to remind myself to understand. Addicts have to make the choice. The desire to change needs to come from the addict, and sometimes the desire to change is still not enough. They're going to need a lot of support. They will, depending on what drug they're doing, they're going to need a group therapy, perhaps. AA meetings might work for them. Medication might work depending, again, on the drug that they're using. Some drugs do have replacement therapies available. But this is something that they're going to be struggling with for the rest of their life. It's not, it may have been 5 years since the last time they used, but that desire to use is still going to be there. Okay? And it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be really hard. And it's not going to be easy for you as a person who's connected to them. So figure out what you are comfortable offering, what you're comfortable providing as a way of support. Are you going to be an ear to listen to their sob story? Are you willing to pick them up so that they don't go to jail? Are you willing to bail them out? What are you comfortable with doing? And if you decide that you can't do some of the things that you feel like you're supposed to do, it's okay, and you don't need to feel guilty. The addict is making these choices. All right? And it's not a sign of you not loving them, even though the addict's going to tell you that. And it's not a sign of you not caring, even though they will tell you that too. All right? It is that you need to put yourself first. And if you keep trying to help the addict when they keep making bad choices, they're going to pull you down with them. Okay? I told you I was a lifeguard before, so I'm going to use a lifeguard analogy here. Let's say that a person doesn't know how to swim, and they know they don't know how to swim. Okay? But they still go off the diving board because, hey, it looks fun. And as a lifeguard, you go and you rescue them. Okay? You grab them, you pull them to the side, and you think, okay, I'm sure they've learned their lesson now, right? No. No, they didn't. In fact, they're going to go off the diving board again. And you're going to have to go in again because that's your job, right? Because you are connected to them, all right? You're going to go in again. You're going to try to rescue them again. But picture this, because this seems to be what's happening with Bob, is the next time they jump off that diving board and they still don't know how to swim, when you go in to get them, they're not complying with you, right? They're actually trying to climb on you. They're trying to push you down. They are making it difficult for you to do your job, all right? They're putting your life at risk. And what they tell you to do when you're a lifeguard, because they have these huge orange tubes, right? They're like this big around, and they're 2 or 3 feet long, probably 3 feet long, right? And what they tell you to do is, first, you approach the person from the back if they're drowning, because you don't want them to grapple you. You don't want them to climb on you, because that's going to make it hard for you to swim. You're a strong swimmer, obviously, otherwise you wouldn't be a lifeguard, but they're going to make it more challenging for you to swim. Okay? And if the person turns around on you, so you're doing your back approach, if the person turns around on you, you're supposed to back off. And then what you do is you're offering them the tube. You're not getting within arm's reach of them. You're offering them the tube. And the hope is they'll grab the tube and then you can just haul them to safety. Okay? Unfortunately, the only other way you can handle this, if they are fighting a whole lot, is to let them go under. And to let them finally be passive. Okay? And then you can go take them, and then you're going to pull them to the side, and you're going to get them out, and you're going to work on them. Alright? The problem with addicts, well, besides all of those that I've already told you, is this person who keeps jumping off the diving board. Every time they get rescued, they think, no, this time I learned how to deal with it. I know what to do now. I know what to do. I got it. I can do it. And so they jump off again, and they still don't know how to swim. Because guess what? They're not actually taking the time and effort to learn how to swim. Okay? They just think, hey, the jumping off the diving board is a lot of fun. And they want that feeling, that exhilaration, even though it's for a nanosecond, and they're willing to put their lives at risk to do it. Okay? So protect yourself first. Because if you don't protect yourself, then you're not going to be around to protect anyone else. And so this is important for you. Alright, another point for me to make is addicts tend to take and take and take and take and take and take. Alright? I've shared this with some people, but my last relationship was really bad. It was abusive, emotionally. It was not physically, which I'm thankful for, but I think physical might have been easier because there would have at least been marks. When it's emotional and you're trying to get help, a lot of people don't understand. Like, they don't understand the damage that's been done. So what was happening with this is Bob wanted help, and I would give him what he wanted. He wanted space, I would give him space. He wanted privacy, I would give him privacy. And then he would get mad because I didn't care about him, because I was giving him exactly what he asked for. Alright? Addicts are not rational people. They may pretend that they're rational, and it may seem like at moments that they're rational, but they're not rational people. Okay? So the more I gave, the more he took, and the less happy he was with what I was doing. Okay? I wasn't making enough money, I wasn't handling things around the house the way he wanted, even though he didn't have a job, and he could have been cleaning the house. He wasn't, right? Because that's not what a man does. It emasculates him. And again, I'm not putting words in his mouth. This is what he told me. So, yeah, just understand that they're going to take and take and take, and they're going to plead, and they're going to play the pity party, right? They're going to tell you, I have nowhere to go, I'm homeless, I promise not to use anymore, and unfortunately, at some point, you're going to need to put your foot down to protect yourself, and say, I need to be done, right? And figure out what you're going to do with this person, if you're going to consider having anything to do with this person. So, how do you keep you safe? First, listen to what they have to say. And they are a lot of talk, right? But you need to be cautious. So if this person is threatening you, get a restraining order. All right. If this person is planning to do whatever. So when I was being threatened with having to go to court, I contacted my lawyer. That is the most rational thing I could do, right? I'm not going to try to plead with him, although I kind of tried to reason with him, but that was like talking to a brick wall. It's not going to work to try to plead with them. It's not going to work to try to get them to see reason because they can't see it. All right? They might as well be looking through a filter. And so you need to figure out how to be safe. If you think that there's the possibility that this person's going to come after you, make sure that your home is secure. Make sure that you're paying attention. And if that means that you are carrying some sort of personal protective device, then do it. Get training if that's what you need to boost your confidence. But make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Okay? I strongly recommend getting into better shape so that if the unexpected happens, you're able to relax. And while I don't think things, at least with Bob, are going to get to, if you've ever seen the movie Enough with Jennifer Lopez, I don't think they're going to get that bad. But he is controlling. He is possessive. And he thinks he's got everything figured out. Okay? Don't let that happen to you. Alright? Get out while you can. And I know that it's hard. I know it's hard. I was in my relationship for 5 years. 5 years later, I'm looking back at what was going on with my relationship and how we were interacting with each other, and it was awful. I couldn't believe I'd allowed that to happen. And the truth is it gradually happened, which is what I talked about in the first addiction video, right? It was slow. If he had started doing the things that he was doing at the end of our relationship, when we first started dating, our relationship wouldn't have happened. Okay? So here's how I've been handling it. First, I was lucky, and I had a few people that provided me with unconditional support and love, which has been amazing because I haven't had that for, I would say, for most of my life. At least not with the consistency and the ability to access them. I strongly recommend counseling. If it's physical, if it's mental, if it's a combination, whatever it is, it's messing with you. And in order to help you get healthy, in order to help you stay healthy, it helps to have somebody who is a neutral party, who's kind of listening to what's going on, who's there to validate what you are feeling and experiencing. And understand that your reactions are okay. It's okay for you to have these reactions. All right? I was having anxiety attacks because my body was like, there's a threat here. And this is a scary, scary thing. And so that's what my body was doing. All right? So counseling, you might consider medications, but this is a thing for you to talk to your doctor about. Please don't fall into that whole, I'm going to drink and feel better, or I'm going to smoke a little pot and I'll feel better, that kind of thing. Please don't self-medicate, because what ends up happening is you feel better for a little bit, and then once the drug or the alcohol wears off, you are still feeling whatever you were feeling before, because you didn't process it. You're not learning new methods of coping. And I think that a lot of this comes down to coping mechanisms, right? The addict is going to do their best in order to isolate you, to make you think that their reality is the reality. This is called gaslighting. And having people outside of that relationship, again, whatever it is, whether it's a romantic or familial or whatever, having people outside that who are able to listen to you and talk to you is going to be very helpful. Okay? Having a counselor is going to be very helpful, because the counselor is there to help you and to support you. They're not going to listen to your story and say, wow, you're a terrible person. I can't believe you would let them go through all that by themselves. Okay? And I've heard this from Bob. Bob has said that I left him in his most vulnerable time. And that's hard to hear, because that's not the way I normally react, right? But I had to distance myself in order to protect myself. Oh, let me summarize this for you first. Okay, so first, don't panic. If you're in a relationship with an addict, don't panic. Keep in mind that they're going to do a lot of talking. They're not going to do a lot of action. It's okay to say no. It's okay to get help. Figure out what your boundaries are, figure out what you can handle. If you need to completely disconnect from this person, do it, and try not to feel guilty. Okay? You need to protect yourself, and that's okay. Consider getting counseling and or medication. You might consider exercise, you might consider doing meditation. There are a lot of coping mechanisms out there that are not going to make things worse for you. So as far as where I am, I kind of have, and some of you may be religious, various religions, I'm sure, but for me, it's just kind of an like faith in the universe. It's not necessarily that there's this higher power, but it seems to me that things kind of balance out. So I may be going through a rough patch, or I may have gone through a rough patch in the past, and then I learn from it, and things get better. But I think that this has to do with your outlook on life, right? Because you could choose to focus on the negative stuff, and you could choose to allow that stuff to control what you are capable of doing, and all of that. Or you could try to look for that silver lining, right? You could try to look for the good that could come out of what is happening to you, all right? It could be that maybe you get into volunteering. It could be that maybe you are able to share your experiences so that other people understand that they're not alone. And it's very important for you to know you are not alone. You are not alone. Okay, people deal with the stuff that you're dealing with. You're not alone. Don't compare yourself to other people. This is really important. The first time I was having some issues with a relationship, I made the mistake of confiding in some people who kind of did the Oprah thing. This was Oprah from like 15 years ago. But what she would do is she would one up, right? So somebody would say, well, this happened to me, and then she'd say, oh, wow, that's terrible. But this is what happened to me. And then the story that she would share is just so much worse. So much worse. This is the Fat Health Teacher signing out, and we will see you next time. All right, what do you say now?
Goodbye!
And don't panic.